Hello and welcome to the Mobile Gamedev Playbook. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. This is the podcast that provides insights into what makes a great mobile game, what is and isn't working for mobile game designers, and all the latest trends. I'm your host, John Jordan, and in this episode, we are going to be taking a look at what's been happening in 2021. We are that way through the year already, that we've got plenty of trends to look at in the first 6 months. And I have three experts who are going to be unpicking what's been going on in terms of trends and new launches and all this sort of stuff. So joining me, we have Erno Kieski, Chief Game Analyst for the US at GameRefinery. How's it going, Erno?
It's going great, John. Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see you on video. This is new for some of you. And we also have Kalle Helkkanen, Chief Game Analyst for China. How's it going, Wilhelm? Oh, sorry, Kalle.
It's going very well. How about you, John?
This is good. This is where the video is starting to confuse me now. I'm reading from one thing and seeing your faces on the bottom there. And already introduced incorrectly. Wilhelm von Telanen, Senior Games Analyst for the US. How's it going, Wilhelm?
I'm doing really good. And nice to see you, Jordan.
Yeah, it is. It makes it much easier when we can see each other, doesn't it? So we've got quite a lot to get through. And we're going to be digging in, I think, to a lot of interesting stuff. Certainly, I've been interested in looking at the notes. But let's start off at the high level. So, Kalle, you're going to take us through, first 6 months. What have we been seeing at that sort of high level of what's happening, what's new in mobile games?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, John. I think like a good place to start is definitely take a high-level look and basically look at sort of the market landscape and how does the sort of the market share situation between different kinds of genres look like, and whether there's been any sort of like a major shifts in the markets that we cover. And I think I could just go through the three key markets that we follow here at GameRefinery. So first of all, starting with the Chinese market, we in the last 5 months, what we have seen is that the battle royale subgenre has grown, and what that means in China, it basically means that the game for peace has grown. It has about 98% revenue market share in the market, and that came with the expense of forex strategy that declined a little bit, but this was relatively small shift, only 2-3% shift. And then in the Japanese market, it was very interesting. We saw arcade sports growing 8%, which is quite phenomenal. And why did that happen? Well, we're actually hopefully going to discuss that later in the podcast when we'll discuss the Uma Musume, which took the Japanese charts by the storm. But then we have the US market, obviously, and there we saw forex strategy to grow. We had some very interesting games that we'll discuss shortly entering the market. And Match 3 Puzzle, then on the other hand, declined a little bit. But in relative terms, of course, when we're looking at the market shares. But yeah, it will be very interesting to see how Forex the situation with forex strategy, how that will develop now during this year, when we all know that the changes with the UA targeting due to IDFA have come into effect, and like we all know, genres like forex strategy, they basically live and breathe on their targeting on these high LTV users. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that sort of landscape will develop. But actually related to that topic, one thing that we have witnessed happening in the forex space is that a lot of these forex games have experimented with different kinds of sort of a hybrid approaches, trying on different kinds of gameplay elements and meta elements, and inputting those into their game design. And Wilhelm, would you want to walk us through what that basically means in practical terms?
Yeah. Thank you, Kalle. Absolutely. So basically, of course, what we mean by these hybrid games is either mid-core games or casual games, utilizing sort of these elements from the other genre. And this has been a huge trend in both casual genres and in mid-core genres. But I think Forex is one of one of the best examples lately for this. I could bring up few. Well, first, for example, if we look at sort of pretty much all of the new 4X strategy games, they have nowadays utilizing some kind of hybrid elements. Some examples are, for example, Puzzles and Survival is a really good one. It got launched in fall of last year. Basically, right now it's already in the crossing of 27 in the US, and it's basically your average, your normal 4X game, but the core gameplay actually utilizes this kind of puzzle RPG layer, so sort of targeting to a larger audience than just your normal 4X audience. And then we have, of course, Top War is really good one here. It's actually already got launched in the start of last year, so start of 2020. And it has actually, but lately it has steadily sort of climbed ranks, and it's now is on the grossing 23 last time I checked. And that's actually a game that sort of tries to cater more also towards the casual audience, bring the casual sort of players to the 4X games as well, because it utilizes this merge mechanic, which of course merge is it's a trend itself as well, but it utilizes merge mechanic when you're, for example, leveling up your buildings or leveling up our units, so you're basically doing that with the merge. And also the sort of the art style is a bit different from your average 4X. It utilizes this cartoonish casual style there. And lastly, I really want to mention here that one of the newest additions to the 4X space is a game called Infinity Kingdom. It got launched in the start of this year. It's just recently broke its way into the top 200 crossing, and it's basically this sort of audible RPG 4X hybrid. So in your normal 4X game, you're sort of focusing more on developing units and so on, but in the Infinite Kingdom, it's all about the characters. And of course, when you look at the visuals, the sort of visual style of the character is absolutely beautiful. The menus are sort of different from your normal 4X game. For example, if you this is my personal opinion, but I'm not the biggest fan of your normal 4X game UI and graphics and elements and so on. But what actually Infinite Kingdom does extremely well here, it's basically the whole menu and all the different actions you take into this game is made much easier for the players. Kind of little bit reminds me of your Supercell style of game.
No, so some interesting points there. I guess, yeah. I wonder how specifically sort of games companies have been thinking about the changes that Apple have been making to the UI stack, because I think you know, as pointed out, the game developers got very good at targeting very very specific kind of groups of users who they knew monetized extremely well, and I guess, you know, going back in the day when Game of War launched from Machine Zone as it then was, and that was the first game where certainly I played it, and you were like sort of, there is no gameplay, there's just meta, you know, and that was quite a surprising sort of thing. And I guess it's kind of interesting that not quite 10 years on, but getting on for 8 years on, that it's kind of the game design has sort of swung back the other way, and it's kind of those sort of games appealed very strongly to a very small group of people, but actually bringing in a sort of gameplay mechanic actually. Probably you can't monetize it so aggressively, but maybe you can't do that anyway because Apple's sort of broken that ability. So maybe it's a coincidence. I guess maybe there is clever designers out there have sort of put those two things together, and we and I guess the proof of the pudding is it seems like these games are doing very well actually on monetization, aren't they? So the numbers you were given were top grossing chart positions, weren't they? So
yeah, definitely. And if you look in based off especially IAP revenues and so on, and like Kalle said, 4X being the one of the subgenres that has been growing the most during the first quarter or for the first half of the year so far, and most of the growth, if you look at the games that have been growing the most, they are actually these games that are already utilizing these various ways of hybridization, whether it's an RPG layer or whether it's an more casual kind of like a merge mechanic like Top 4 or then Match 3 that Puzzles and Survival are doing. So definitely it's already a thing, and at least personally, I would assume that this kind of like approach is going to continue when the actual impact of the of the IDFA targeting hits like for real. So especially for the new games that doesn't have the already like passionate audience, it's gonna be really hard for those games, super hardcore 4X games, to find that audience if the targeting is super hard.
And I guess it's kind of interesting. Again, another long-term trend we saw. I think it was the first $1 billion game was Puzzle and Dragons, and that was sort of match 3 with RPG. We saw that, and then I guess we've had sort of Empires and Puzzles, which is sort of, I guess, a sort of city building with match 3, not quite the heavy duty meta. And so we've seen the kind of mashing up of match 3 with various different things, and now it's got to the most hardcore sort of game. And interesting that already we're seeing Merge, because Merge is very casual, and Merge is, as a game kind of mechanic, it seems to be following a sort of a similar trend, that it's going, being added in. It's the new mashup mechanic that people are.
Yeah. That's often how it goes, and often, at least how I think about it. Usually, innovation is all about like mixing and matching different things. So whether it's genres, whether it's mechanics, whether it's specific features coming to new genres, usually that's something that maybe someone has already done in a separate genre, and they see that, let's say, okay, let's try. How can we innovate in our niche and in our subgenre with specific features, for example, as well?
And good to see the graphics are getting a lot better. Those 4X games were just those sort of static 2D sort of menus. It was kind of like not a lot of work had gone into that graphic, so it's good to see the a bit more 3D. So those are some of the games: Puzzle and Survivals, Top War, and Infinity Kingdom. Those are some of the ones that have been during the first half of the year, sort of rising up the top grossing charts, even if they launched a bit before. What do we see about kind of new games that have launched in the first half of 2021? I guess there's always a bit of a regional variation, but should we start with the US? No, I think you're going to kick us off on that one.
Yeah, sure. So definitely a lot of games coming into the markets already during this first half, but we picked a couple really interesting ones. Firstly, I want to highlight Royal Match, which is basically a match 3 game, and we all know that Project Makeover, the game that came like last year, became a huge hit. It basically entered the top 5 match 3 games in the US market, and not a single game has been able to do that for years. Basically the Scapes games and Toon Blast and games like that were the latest entries in the top 5, and now Project Makeover did that. And now after that, really quite quickly, during February 25th, Royal Match was launched. And it's basically been scaling ever since. And now it's average monthly ranking, if we look 1 month back, it's around 20, top crossing 29. So it's all the way up there on the top crossing charts. And what is really interesting about that game is that if we look at the previous big hits inside the match 3 subgenre, most of those have been playing around with different kind of metas and construction metas, like the Scapes games introduced, or let's say the home design metas with Home Design Makeover, or Project Makeover, which had the home design and the kind of like a Luke's makeover side of things. But with Royal Match, their meta layer is actually super simple. They basically have this slight construction meta, really close to what you have in Coin Master. So you are just basically accumulating currency, and then you push one button, and then something appears in the map. And then when you have completed that, then you go to the next map. So there's not any like decorative choices like you have in Scapes games or in Project Makeover and so on. But that's the only kind of like a proper meta that they have. And then they have kind of like a social mechanics really close to the what you have in Toon Blast. So actually the company behind this game is consists of a lot of ex-Peak Games guys. So that is clearly can be seen from Royal Match that it has a lot of resemblance, a lot of similarities with the Toon Blast, even with its UI and so on, and how the social mechanics works and so on. And one interesting also factor that I want to highlight on this one is that Royal Match actually uses these classic swapping mechanics in its core gameplay. And also actually Project Makeover did that. And if you look at the market and if you look at the charts of the markets and so on, a couple of years ago when all the like games that were able to hit the high top crossing charts like 200 or so on, every single one of them was basically using the blasting. So we had the Lily's Garden, we had the Property Brothers, and games like that, and that was clearly a trend. But now if you look at like 1 year back, not a single game using that mechanic has been able to enter the charts. But now we're again back to this swapping mechanic. So we see Project Makeover, we see Royal Match, we saw last year also Harry Potter, Puzzles and Spells, and so on. So now we have again gone kind of like back to the traditional swapping mechanics in the new hit match 3 game, kind of like a matching mechanic. What has been used mainly.
I think I have said this before on other episodes, but it still does. It's striking just how versatile match 3 is. I mean, it's just obviously match 3 existed before mobile games. We had all the kind of Bejeweled, I guess, was the first kind of big one. But it's incredible that over this decade period that it can be used in so many different kind of ways and for so many different kind of genres, and can be sort of reinvented and sort of you say like the fashion becomes sort of circular in game design. It goes one way and then it sort of comes back again. It's just something obviously very psychologically fulfilling in our brains about just matching 3 things up and seeing them disappear.
Definitely.
Kind of fascinating, really, isn't it? And I guess it is also interesting that you say we're kind of seeing in the games you've been mentioning that they're coming from, say, kind of Royal Match coming from, they're a Turkish developer, and I think some of those other ones kind of Russian developers as well. We're kind of seeing it's been for a while now, but we're really seeing sort of the big hits coming globally now. It's not it's not just the big sort of Western European or American companies. It really is this kind of innovation is happening sort of globally, which is kind of really great from a sort of cultural point of view. What else have we got? It can't just be match 3. There must be some other games.
Definitely not. There are something else also in the market. Luckily, match 3 is great, but it's great to have something else as well.
Yeah.
But one of the probably the recent addition to the market, which I personally find really interesting, is this game called My Hero Academia: The Strongest Hero, which is an action RPG, and it actually just launched on 19th of May, so it's been on the market only for a couple of weeks. But what makes it super interesting to me is that it had really strong launch. It's been basically around top crossing 20 and almost on the top of the download charts ever since the launch. And what is also kind of like what makes it really interesting is that it's actually an action RPG game. And if you look at the Western markets, action RPGs were struggling really hard on mobile until Genshin Impact launched was last year, and now if we look at kind of like a subgenre market share, Genshin Impact before this game was generating like almost 80% of the action RPG revenues in the US market, and now we see a new action RPG with super high production values. It uses this anime brand of My Hero Academia. So we are seeing this kind of like a new blood for the action RPG market. So it's really interesting to see, is it able to really sustain in a similar manner as Genshin Impact in the market. At least the start is super strong. So we will see what happens. But it's an interesting new trend that we see that finally action RPGs on mobile, also on the West, are seeing success. And there are plenty of these games coming. One could be highlighted also is the Netmarble is working on a game with the Marvel IP called Marvel Future Revolution that should be coming this year, at least for a soft launch. And that's also an action RPG, really high production values. They have some open world elements there like Genshin Impact apparently and stuff like that. So really interesting to see this genre finally finding life in the West.
And all of these come from Asia, if you think
That's
about
true
it.
also.
Like Genshin Impact, this one, and then the Marble game. So there's a connection there.
And don't forget the Diablo Immortal. So
yeah, that's also in the action RPG. It's gonna interesting games to see how it goes. But
yes, that will be interesting to see the particularly the Western reaction to that one. Anyway, we have some other sort of big brands that are game brands. So we've got League of Legends Wild Rift.
Yeah, exactly. So we finally got the global launch from the Wild Rift. I checked the ranks. It basically, I think it started quite strong, so it bounced straight into rank 30 crossing in the US. They actually brought in with the global launch update. They brought even more heroes from the PC version. They had some events. So the live ops has actually been really good in the Wild Rift. So they have lots of unique different kind of events, and also they added the battle pass plan. But since the launch, it actually declined quite a bit. So I think it's right now struggling to be in the top 200 crossing right now. But it's still it's interesting to see where they will take it next, because actually just I think it was yesterday or today they actually added new feature which is completely like, I think it's the first feature that they don't have in the PC version of the game. So it's called this sort of friends feature. Okay. So you're building this friendship level with one of your friends, and I think I'm guessing that maybe this could hint to even more sort of mobile-only features, maybe even more social features that the other MOBA competitors have. For example, guilds. I think pretty much every single other top crossing MOBA has guilds and so on. And it's good to note that here that the top competitor of Wild Rift in the US, mobilegames Bang Bang, is actually still doing extremely well. It's sustaining the rank 70.
No, it is. I can imagine it's quite a difficult sort of game design kind of process when you have something that's such a big hit on another platform, particularly PC or console. And obviously, kind of MOBAs for a long time were, people were throwing designs for mobile MOBAs, and nothing really stuck for a long time, until sort of I guess kind of Tencent's kind of finally cracked it in China at least. But and I guess kind of not in this genre, but we have obviously Apex Legends coming to mobile. We've had kind of Valorant announced this week as well. Diablo Immortal you've kind of announced as well. And okay, that's a true sort of mobile game, but it is it is good that we have these kind of big console kind of IP game PC consoles coming as well. But they're getting the balance right, I think, is sort of almost impossible without launching. And then I guess you have to feel your way to the audience and see how do they want do they want the full thing on their mobile? Do they want a slightly change session length? Because I guess you need to have as much of the kind of true game that people want, the fans want, but then there has to be something to make them want to play it on mobile. So there has to be some sort of you want some sort of new features in there, don't you? You want something to give why am I playing this on mobile rather than PC.
Yes, that's also an interesting launch in that sense that CCGs, so collectible card games, they have been a little bit struggling in the market recently. So if you look at the market, Hearthstone naturally was for years the big CCG game in the Western markets. At least on the mobile, it has been on quite steady decline for a while now, and it's not even like a top crossing 200 game anymore. It used to be like over there on the top 50 and so on, but it has really declined from the market. Then Legends of Runeterra, also from Riot, they launched a while back, and they haven't been able to make much of a difference on mobile, at least in terms of IAP revenues. Not really making a big dent in the subgenre for that. Then we have the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links from Konami, which is again using an anime brand, a game coming from a Japanese company, and that's actually the biggest in terms of revenue, quite easily actually, the biggest CCG currently in the market. But now Magic launched a couple of months ago, and it's now sustaining around crossing rankings 150, and it's been doing quite well. So if you compare that game, for example, for this Q2, which is still of course ongoing, but if we compare the revenues to this day in the Q2 of 2021, it has actually made over double the revenue of what Hearthstone, for example, has made. So it clearly has been able to find audience finally for the like the Magic Gathering mobile experience. And what interesting also about that game, that because anyone who has played Magic, it's quite hardcore game, and it's not super easy to get into. And if we compare it to like Hearthstone, which is much more approachable, kind of like a game for a more casual audience as well, but also the Magic the Gathering Arena, it's really true to the original tabletop version, and it's really hardcore with a lot of rules and so on. But still, definitely the big audience that it already has taken it like really warmly, and it has been able to succeed quite well in the Western market as well.
I often kind of wonder with those games, because they are, they're, as you said, it's sort of like a sub-genre, so there is a real fan base for them, but I think it's very hard to sort of expand that fan base. So, I'm really not a fan of that game. When Hearthstone came out, I sort of fiddled around with it for a little bit, and then realised I didn't really have much of a clue. And I kind of think there is a sort of a genre where I kind of feel like I should spend a bit of time trying to do it, trying to get a bit more into it. But it's quite, to actually be able to monetize that audience, it really is that sort of core. However many, maybe a few million or something, and so those games, I would think, tend to cannibalize each other. There's only so many people who play them, and maybe they play sort of the Hearthstone and Magic, but they...
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree on the entry level for those games is so kind of like a high, because you have to really study those cards. You have to know what card does anything, and then you can just actually start playing when you have already studied so much about the different possibilities and cards and so on. So to start that kind of a game, there's such a high entry barrier, at least also like personally for me. But then I get the kind of like the depth that they offer in terms of gameplay when you are there.
Yeah, I guess the game is easier to start on mobile than actually with the actual physical playing cards.
I also wonder that now that we have the pandemic situation going on, and obviously people have not been able to, play these sort of card collection games in person with their friends. So I guess there is a certain kind of demand for these kind of experiences, and like Magic, obviously, the physical version has a huge, it has a significant fan base. So I can imagine that a lot of people are craving for getting back to playing Magic, and then I guess this is how you can channel that demand.
Okay, so we'll do one more. So Wilhelm, you're going to talk about the new game in the Summoner's War franchise.
Yeah, we can go quickly through that as well, because it's actually quite interesting case. So basically, everybody knows Summoner's War, really huge classic, still in the sustained top 50 grossing, but they finally actually launched a spin-off from the game. So Summoner's War Lost Centuria actually just launched in April, so brand new game. The game actually instantly bounced to rank 60-ish, but actually declined since that. And I think one of the reasons for the decline was the first time user experience. So it's the game starts in extremely unique way, where basically, the game is basically auto battle RPG / tactical but a PvP hybrid game. But still, you have really... Yeah, exactly. Well, that's like the hybrid of the hybrid of the hybrid. But yeah. Basically, game starts with really quick tutorial. You basically they let you know how the actual core gameplay works, but the game is all about the spells and different character combinations. So what they do after the tutorial is they throw you straight into the ranked PvP mode, which is, of course, now you're actually playing against real players in a ranked PvP, and you're gonna get annihilated there. And basically, for me, to couple of playing sessions to actually get into the game. And when I got into the game, it was extremely fun. All the different combinations and the core gameplay was super good. And I see a lot of potential in that. But I'm pretty sure that the day one retention is probably not the best for the game. Yeah, so basically, you build in a normal turn or auto battle RPG style. You build a team of I think it was six characters. You enter a battle. It's basically auto battle, but you have these sort of skills, similar to what you would have in having these card battle games. So basically you utilizing those skills, and usually in auto battle RPGs, the sort of the auto attack damage, it's the significant one, that you don't really have to focus that much on what spells are you clicking. But in this game, it's all about the different spells, how you're utilizing them. You have to learn the different synergies, and there's also really interesting elements. So you can basically, when you see another player has played a card, you have like really maybe half a second time to actually reply to that card. You encounter it, so your card actually plays before that. So it's a really skill-based game, especially for auto battle RPG. But I'd say maybe the tutorial would maybe start in different way. And also actually something quite interesting, that the whole game opens up through the ranked mode. So when you rise ranks, of course, if you lose, you're gonna get lowered ranks. You have to win games to open up levels in the normal mode. You have to win games to even open up the casual PvP mode. So that's, even for a PvP game, that's really unique way to to do it.
Yeah, I guess they're probably not spending much marketing money and just cross promoting with Summoners Wars, and maybe they're not worried about retention that way. Okay, so we talked a lot about the US, but the US is clearly not the only place in the world. So, Kalle, you're going to run us through some of the other launches that have happened, kind of Japan and China.
Yes, for sure. So let's start with a highlight from Japan. There's a game called Uma Musume that was released, I believe it was in February. That took the top 1 grossing position quite quickly, and I think it has been hovering around top 1, 2, 3 grossing ever since, basically. So that's definitely one reason why this game is so interesting. The Japanese, the very top of Japanese top grossing, it's actually not that volatile. So whenever there's a new top grosser in the space, and that top grosser that is able to sustain, that's always interesting. Because the games that we have there, they are these Monster Strikes and Puzzles and Dragons that have been there for basically forever. So that's one thing. And then about the game itself, I would say that the game's premise, it's quite bizarre. I think saying that it's bizarre is the understatement of the year. So the basic idea in Uma Musume Pretty Derby is that you train these derby horse girls, and these horse girls, they're actually the legendary race horses that have been reborn into mostly human shape. So I guess that must have been quite a sales pitch someone has made down the line. And I'm not gonna go. It works. It seems to be working. I'm not gonna go to the nitty gritty of how Uma Musume works. We actually have a very good blog post on GameRefinery.com. If anyone's interested, please visit there and read the blog post where we go into full detail on the game. But in essence, it's all about these gameplay loops that you make, and within these loops, you make decisions on how you train these horse girls in order to get them perform in the best manner possible. So you decide, for example, on whether you take them on an outing, have them rest, you go to infirmary to heal, or you participate in these races, which are sort of the culmination of these training loops. And then after that loop finishes, the horse girl that you've been training, that will then enter your character roster, and then the loop is restarted, and you can use that character as a support character in your following training loops. And obviously, this is a Japanese top crossing game, so there are narrative aspects. You have very strong event support, and one interesting tidbit is that after these races, there's a victory live performance, which is a sort of a musical pop rock performance that the participants of the race will then perform. And why is this game so popular then? Well, it's an IP based game, so there's a manga behind it and a huge fan base that are familiar with the IP, so that's definitely something that is boosting this. Lots of gachas. There is a very good character collection mechanic in place that is supported with high quality gacha systems, and the game looks good as well. So outstanding visual performance as well.
But on that subject, actually, I think it's really interesting case because it uses that kind of a gameplay loop. Because in mobile, we see a lot of like similar gameplay loops in RPGs or whatever it is, whatever the genre. And if I read the blog post about this game, and it's something totally different how the whole game works. So it's really interesting use case for sure for anyone to check out.
Although, I mean, it is interesting that it does. I was going to say the typical thing. Well, that's a typical sort of Japanese game, where the Japanese have these very kind of culturally specific sort of experiences that they like, and obviously a lot of it is based in manga and anime. But there have been interesting cases, I guess, where those things have sort of broken out globally because they are just so different to anything else other cultures have that a certain group of kind of people who are interested in new experiences go, let's sort of check it out, maybe we'll see sort of wider interest. And I know there is generally as well. There is quite a lot of. I've played other games where you had these women who were battleships and stuff. I think there is in Asian culture this general kind of way of swapping human beings and other sort of forms that can go in games. Anyway, I won't go into that. And finally, China. So we're sort of running sort of over time now, but very quickly, there has been some stuff going on in China. So do you want to quickly cover what's been going on there?
For sure. Yeah. In China, obviously, we have had some interesting game launches as well, like a new One Piece turn-based RPG that is based on the One Piece brand. But I would actually if I'd have to highlight one thing from the last 6 months, especially, it would actually be the lack of certain kind of games. And to be more precise, I would say that the lack of non-Chinese games, so Western games or even other games from other Asian countries. So to be clear, the Chinese market, it has never been much populated with non-Chinese games. So if you compare, for example, the Japanese market, there's a much higher presence of, for example, Western games. But it's still very, very striking to see that there are only a couple of games in the top grossing charts. So we have Playrix's Escapes games, we have Hearthstone, a couple of Supercell games, and then very interestingly, we have the Sky Children of Light from that game company, which is published by NetEase in China, but still, it's very, very, very interesting to see that sustain its rankings there. But anyway, the point being that the presence of non-Chinese games, it's very non-existent, and of course the question is that why is that the case? And I guess the biggest ones are that the regulations and the scrutiny that you have when it comes to publish your games in China, it has just gone stricter and stricter and stricter, and the timelines that you have to wait for getting your games published, all the red tape that is involved, it has just increased and increased. And then on the other hand, the market landscape as well, it's very, very tough. If you look at the products that we have in the top grossing market in China, they are very much populated by games that are expensive to make, that require a lot of content, high level of live ops cadence and stuff like that. So it's not it could be an easier market to enter for sure. And I want to close off with something that's very interesting, is that when we see then non-Chinese games entering the top crossing space in China, there are games like this spring we've had Elder Scrolls Blades and Pokemon Quest, for example, which just tell the story of that it just takes quite a lot of time apparently for getting your games out there, because Pokemon Quest, for example, has been out there for some time already. So it's very, very interesting to look at the Chinese market also from the perspective of how are Western games, for example, populated the market.
Yeah, I think that's a sort of a broader trend, isn't it? I think maybe 5 years ago there was this kind of idea that the mobile market was going very global, and you could sort of, not every game would be successful everywhere, but you could kind of start to see that it was a very open market, and I guess we've seen that changing, particularly in the case of China and their regulations, and obviously there's cultural aspect to that as well. Cool, good. So that was a bumper edition of the podcast. This episode, that's great. We've gone into a lot of detail. We've given people a lot of homework, so a lot of games for people to be downloading and checking out and seeing how these mechanics are being mashed up. So Puzzle and Survival's Top War, Infinity Kingdom as hybrid games, Royal Match, and MHA, The Strongest Man. What else do we get? League of Legends, Wild Rift, Magic the Gathering Arena, Summoners Wars, Lost Centura, and I'm not pronouncing the other one.
Uma Musume.
Pretty Derby, yeah. Una Musumi, yeah, something like that. Cool. So just to say, thank you very much to our experts, Ono, Wilhelm, and Kalle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening and watching. So every month we are taking a deep dive into what's going on in the world of mobile games, and there just is continually crazy, interesting, fascinating stuff happening. So we hope you can kind of join us for the ride. You can get us through your podcast channels, on YouTube as well. And if you enjoy it, please give us a review, particularly on the podcast side. That's very helpful. But anyway, thanks for being involved with the Mobile Game Dev Playbook, and come back next time to find out what's going on in the world of mobile games.